Look at all this pork. The old grocery getter is right full. Hi, I'm Pete, and welcome to Just a Few Acres Farm. I just went to the butcher and picked up 8 pigs worth of pork, and in this video I'm gonna unload the boxes, that's the biggest part for me anyway, and weigh them all out and talk about live to dress to how much cuts you get back, what kind of cuts you get back, costs, growing pigs, butchering pigs, a whole 9 yards. What I'm going to do is unload these and pile them up by cut. You crazy cat. Alright, I got them all unloaded and divided by cut. I'll show you. We got 11 boxes of ground pork and sausage here, 4 boxes of spare ribs and butt roast there, 8 boxes of pork chops, 7 boxes of lard trimmings, and 1 box of organ meat. Before we get into the boxes, I want to go over live to dress, and then we're going to figure out what I actually got back. So here's where these pigs dressed. They dressed at 140, 201 pounds, of course, 170, 170, 166, 170, 169, and 177. All those numbers should add up to 8 pigs. Now what I just listed is hanging weight, and hanging weight is different, of course, than live weight. Live weight is what they weighed when I brought them to the butcher, and I never weighed them, so I don't really know what the live weight was. The butcher doesn't weigh them when they first come in. What he weighs is dress weight, those numbers that I gave you. So dress weight is the pig gutted and skinned and the feet taken off, but with the head still on and all the guts out. So it's kind of the empty carcass already skinned with the head on and the feet missing, to put it in short. That's usually 70 to 75% of the live weight. So if my average hanging weight was about 170 pounds, that means the live weight was about 250 pounds. I have in the past shot for a hanging weight of 200 pounds, so you'd say, well, these pigs were a little light. But I found growing the lard pigs that we grow that once they get to a certain size, they just start putting on layers of fat. So in a way, I'm kind of happy. You saw how much lard that I got back. I'm kind of happy that they dressed a little light. Usually it means that my bacon's going to have more lean to fat ratio, which I also like. And for the statisticians out there, I added everything up, and the total of all 8 hogs dress is 1,363 pounds, which means that the live weight was probably around 1,800 pounds for all 8 of them together. Now we'll go through cut by cut, and I'll weigh everything, give you a total weight for each type of cut, and we'll start with the sausage and ground pork here. Here are the 4 types of ground pork products that we have made. First of all, and these are all about 1 pound packs, is ground pork. Just plain ground pork, nothing added to it. The next is breakfast sausage, which comes to make patties or crumble out of, and that's basically just ground pork with salt and a little bit of sugar and sage in it. Then we have sweet Italian sausage here, which is in a rope style in a large coil, about 1 pound again, fennel-based sausage with sugar and a little bit of pepper. And hot Italian sausage, which really isn't very hot. It's got a little red pepper and a little black pepper on it, made in a coil, just like the sweet sausage. Oh, and before I go any further, I'll put up on the screen the typical cut sheet that we use. And we've really settled down in the way that we have pork cut. There's not as many options as there is for beef. Basically, just in short, you've got the front of the pig, the middle of the pig, and the hind part of the pig, kind of the 3 primal cuts off of pig. We have the front leg, except for the butt, which is at the very top of the shoulder, ground into sausage. Yes, you can make picnic hams out of that. You can make steaks out of that. We found that we get most of our sausage there. If we didn't have that made into sausage and ground pork, we would get precious little of those ground products back. With the midsection, we have that cut into pork chops. We have the spare ribs taken off. We have the belly taken off the side of the spare ribs, and in this batch we're smoking it all for bacon. I don't have the bacon back yet. That's going to be a couple more weeks, so I can't get a weight on that. Now the pork chops are cut off the loin, running along the backbone. We have those cut bone in, both 3/4 inch thick and 1.5 inch thick. I like chops on the bone, so that's the way we have it done. It's also cheaper to have it done at the butcher that way because they just put them on a bandsaw and away they go cutting them. We have 1/4 to 1/2 inch of fat. left on the chops, left on the butt roast, as close as the butcher can get it. It's not an exact science. Now for the rear leg, in the winter season we have hams made out of the rear and then ground pork made off below the ham. But in the summer season we also have the hams ground up because sausage and ground pork sells much better than smoked hams in the summer season. Just a note on the cost of smoking. The cost of smoking is fairly prohibitive for us, and I'm going to get to this when I talk about the butcher's cost. It costs us over $2 a pound to have hams and bacon smoked. So you got to figure that in when you're charging your price. Plus you're going to lose weight during the smoking process, and it really varies depending on how much fat you've got on each cut. But for bacon you can expect to lose around 20%, hams maybe a little less. Oh, and also before I get too far, these common questions always come up. My butcher skins the pigs. Now, he's a USDA butcher, which means that he has a government inspector there, and he skins the pigs because it's a lot easier for him to skin rather than scald. And there isn't a lot of call around here for skin-on cuts. There's only one USDA butcher probably within a 4-hour radius of us that actually has a USDA-approved scalding process. So pigs always come, or cuts always come back without the skin. The head does not get used. We have the jowl cut out of the head, and we have bacon made out of the pig jowl. You can get the head from the butcher if you'd like. There is extremely little demand for cuts off the head or the whole head around here. There's some ethnic populations that like it, but it overall is a very small demand. What about the feet? The butcher does not do the feet. He'll do the hocks, which are the very bottom part of the foot, and you can have them come back as smoked hocks. We found we can't recoup our cost, our butcher cost in smoked hocks, because it just costs so much to have the smoking done. But the feet he will not do. He will not do pig's knuckles, any of that stuff, because it's too tough to clean for him to clean up the hooves to pass the USDA inspection, so he just doesn't want to deal with them. All right, now we can get on with this. First thing I'm going to do is get a tear weight off a box on the scale here. 1.37 pounds tear, and then we'll weigh up all the ground cuts. 39.11. Put all that in this freezer here. 353.89 pounds of ground pork and sausage. Next we'll move on to pork chops, and pork chops come in 3 primary varieties. You've got your loin chop, which I think everybody thinks of when they think pork chop. And then you've got my favorite, rib chops, which are equivalent to a rib steak off of a cow or a ribeye steak, more marbled. The loin chop is equivalent to a New York strip steak if you take the bone out. And then you've got sirloin chops, which are cut from the very back end of the loin, which is called the sirloin, and they have a little bone in here. These don't sell as well, but I'll tell you, I think that they are delicious. See that darker meat in there? I think they're great. I'm always surprised that pork chops don't just fly out the door. They are so delicious. I think they got a bad rap from supermarket chops, which have been bred to be just about tasteless. We have our chops cut in 2 different thicknesses. This is 2 3/4 inch thick chops in a pack, and they're about a pound or so. And then we alternatively have them cut in 1.5 inch thick chop. I'll tell you, I would take these over a beefsteak any day. And I know a lot of people don't agree with me, but they're so tender and so flavorful and so easy to cook. It's a shame they've been overcooked for so long, and it's been giving them a bad rap of being dry, and of course the meat you get at the supermarket isn't as marbled. So anyway, let's weigh them out. 245.32 pounds of bone-in pork chops. Now we're on to the pork butts and spare ribs, which I'm going to keep mixed together. We don't necessarily need to divide them out. This is how I have spare ribs cut. This is a whole rack, which would be one side of a pig all rolled up. And these weigh 3 to 4 pounds a rack. And then we have our pork butts cut from 3 to 5 pounds because that's the portion size our customer base seems to want. The pork butts have the blade bone in them still. And I try to have them leave a fat cap on. You know, as I said, it's an imprecise science. These are what you make pulled pork out of, although I never make pulled pork. I always roast them and then eat them at about 145 degrees, and they are delicious. So let's weigh these up. Oh, let's see here. And that comes to 163.12 pounds of pork goodness. Now let's look at all this lard. What the butcher does with this is they what's called loose bag it. So it's just got lard trimmings here in a bag. And honestly, I can't sell these. I know everybody raves about how good lard is compared to butter, and I agree, but nobody wants to take the time to render lard, and my butcher doesn't provide it rendered. So this gets traded to a soap maker and we get soap back for it. Or else in the fall, hunters come and they'll buy it, and I usually sell it for 10 bucks a bag. Or is it 5 bucks a bag? I don't know. I think it's 5 bucks a bag. So it doesn't go to waste. It just, I wish it were meat. The lard added up to 192.45 pounds. That's a lot of lard. And in this box, I have the organ meat, which consists of a bag of hearts, a bag of tongues, and a bag of liver. Similar to the lard, I don't have much of a market for this. If I'm lucky, somebody who feeds it as cat or dog food will buy it for a couple bucks a pound. Once in a while, I can sell it fresh to Asians, but that's rare. It's really rare, and I haven't found at the farmer's market any demand at all for any of these things. So they may sit a while. I may sell them for pet food. They'll go one way or the other. Now what I haven't included here is the belly bacon and the jowl bacon. We have that made as too, although the jowl bacon's only maybe a couple pounds per pig. The butcher sent off 184.2 pounds of bacon to be smoked total, and he has a third party smoke the bacon. He doesn't have a USDA approved facility for it, so it goes to someplace else and then comes back to me in about 2 weeks. It takes 2 weeks to salt cure the bacon and then cold smoke it. During that process, that bacon will lose about 25% of its weight. So what I'll get back is about 138, 140 pounds of smoked bacon. Now we can digest all the data, and the first thing I want to throw at you is what you actually get back compared to what came in on the hoof. So remember, my average size pig was 250 pounds coming in on the hoof. That average size pig dressed at about 170 pounds, which is 75% of that live weight. It turns out that I got about 80% back of dress weight. So if you go through the math, you get about 60% back of that live weight that you brought to the butcher, and that's completely normal. In other words, if you take a 250 pound pig to the butcher, you're going to get about 150 pounds of meat back. Now this is going to vary widely because it all depends on whether you're getting all your cuts bone in or boneless or a mixture of both. Remember, we got bone-in pork chops, but I had the hams and the front legs stripped out for sausage, so the bones there aren't part of the equation. So this will vary by 10%, 15%, just depending on the breed of pig and which cuts you choose. But this is the real eye-opener for those who have never been in this business before. I'm going to boil down the costs of raising the pig, the costs of butchering the pig, how much money per pound I've got into this pork. So I usually figure that to grow out a pig from birth, you're going to use about 800 pounds of grain. This is what it came out to be back when I used to track it very exactly. And yes, you can offset that by supplementing with, sometimes we feed apples at the end of the year, sometimes we feed vegetable scraps from the produce farmers we know. In my experience, you can offset that a little bit, but you're not going to make a huge dent in it because pigs need that balanced diet from grain to make the best meat. It's always been my strong opinion that that is the case. You can supplement with other things, but you want the major part of the pig's diet to be the things that their body needs, and our grain is formulated to be that. Now, just taking the grain, remember I've said grain has doubled in the last year. We used to pay about 10 cents a pound for grain. Now we're paying 21 cents a pound. To raise these 8 pigs out cost me $1,444.80 just in grain. To butcher these pigs cost me $2,750. that winds up being $343 per pig. You can save some money off that cost if you go to a custom exempt butcher rather than a USDA butcher like we do. But we have to go to a USDA butcher because we're selling the meat. It has to have a USDA stamp on it, so we pay extra over what a custom exempt butcher would be. $343 a pig. You can mediate the costs of that by having less sausage made and getting fresh pork belly back rather than having it smoked. But for us, August, September, October are BLT season, so we always make sure to have a lot of smoked bacon on hand because it really sells well that time of year. At other times of the year, we do fresh pork belly. If you add the cost of feed and butcher together, and you'll notice the butcher costs were significantly higher than what it cost me to grow out the pig in terms of feed. The two of them together come to $4,194. If you divide that number by 8 to get a per pig cost, it costs $524 per pig for me to raise this batch. And that does not include mine and Hillary's labor in raising these pigs. The cost of maintaining the trailer to take them to the butcher. I know that's not a lot with my old trailer, but there is a cost there. The cost of the fencing and the feeders and all that stuff that gets amortized or depreciated over multiple batches. It doesn't include the cost of maintaining our breed stock, our 2 sows and our boar. I've run through the calculations of the cost for carrying them before, and it does make sense for us to still carry them even though we only have 2 sows and 1 boar. If I were to go out and buy an equivalent number of piglets, I would be in the hole further than keeping them and raising our own piglets. So those things aren't included in that $524 per pig. Now knowing the costs that I have into these pigs, let's look at the total weight I got back. If you include the lard, the meat in the lard, I got 1,116 pounds back. If you take the lard out of the equation, because the lard doesn't have a lot of value, I got about 900 pounds of meat back. And from there, the math is really simple. $4,194, not including labor and brood pigs, for me to raise this batch out of 8 pigs. I got 900 pounds of meat back. Pretty easy to do the math. This pork cost me $4.66 per pound, not including my labor and not including the brood pigs. And most importantly, not including any profit for me to support my family. For those of you who wish to raise your own pigs, the advantage is you're going to get better pork. The disadvantage is you can always go to the grocery store and buy pork more cheaply than you can raise it yourself. And this is at the core of the dilemma surrounding small farms. There are a lot of inefficiencies in the way that we raise any of our livestock, right? My butcher has a lot of inefficiencies. He's a small butcher. We're a very small farm. You contrast those inefficiencies with what you're getting at the supermarket, which in pork's case is a vertically integrated pork production system, all under the umbrella of a single corporate entity. That corporate entity is growing the feed. They're contracting with an independent farmer to grow out those pigs, and they have ironclad contracts. You can bet that farmer ain't making a lot of money if the corporation has its way. And the farmer's under a lot of stress because of very small rules in his contract about how he's growing out the pigs and the facilities he's got to keep. He's really getting pinched. I don't think necessarily supporting a farmer is buying corporate meat, but that's the way the world is. That corporation is also the owner of the butcher houses, still under their umbrella. That corporation, in some cases, owns the supermarket as well. Walmart is moving to gather things under their own umbrella. They've already done it with their dairy products. And chicken and pork are under this umbrella. And eggs as well. Beef is the one meat I can think of, and maybe lamb or sheep as well, that isn't under that single vertically integrated umbrella. But as a consumer and me as a producer, I'm faced with 2 choices now. I can farm the way that I farm, small, inefficient, really good quality, devoted local customer base, a lot of good for the local economy. Or, and there's no middle ground right now, I can go to the giant vertically integrated corporate farms and I can buy at the grocery store. There's nobody around that's raising like they did, say, 30 years ago. The hog farmer that's got 10,000 hogs, and he's contracting with a local or a regional butcher outfit that's going to help him supply supermarket chains. There is no middle ground. And the reason that pork is so cheap in the supermarkets is because the farmer's getting pinched. Everybody along the line is getting pinched except for the people back at the corporation that are making all the profits. And the quality of the pork is suffering because of the profit-minded, single-mindedness of that corporation. They're breeding pork that looks more like white meat chicken. It's lost all of its flavor. It's designed for shelf life and maximum gain and growing in confined conditions in suboptimal environments. That's what it's all about. So as a consumer, you can make that choice. And I hear a lot of people tell me, I can't afford that. I can't afford your meat because my budget is limited. I am sympathetic to that. I think that there are some people who are barely getting by, and I wish that local food was more available to them. I think there are a whole lot more people that give me that response that have simply prioritized their household budget or their expenditures differently. They're saying, I can't afford that, but they're going on a cruise twice a year, or they're going on vacation across the country, or they got a boat, or they got an RV. You name it. They got a $200 cable bill a month, and they say that they can't afford to buy locally produced, good quality food. Oftentimes, it's not a matter of the budget, it's a matter of the priorities in the budget. So, I'm not going to change the world, but I am going to continue to lobby for small farms as a way to create a more resilient, a more localized, more healthy local economy, and a way that we can move into the future without giving everything that we have over to corporations who care more about profit than the benefit of humanity, the quality of the product that they're producing beyond certain minimum parameters, including does it kill people or not, unfortunately, which it does sometimes. I'm going to get off my soapbox or pedestal or whatever you want to call it now, but I'm really passionate about this stuff. And when you look at the numbers and you add to it the fact that I'm getting squeezed as far as my feed costs, and it's forcing me to raise my pork prices even further beyond what the supermarket is charging, it makes me a little mad, you know? And it makes me mad when people give kind of lame excuses for not buying local food. So I hate for this video to end on a sour note. I hope that you got out of this video what it is to grow pork and what you get back and the percentages you can expect, the cuts you can expect, what's most saleable and how much it actually costs to run through the process. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.